Thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background there. Now we have in the studio joining us to discuss power outage in the north, way forward. Let me introduce the first engineer Mustafa a Mehaja, a former Director General, National Emergency Management Agency NEMA, and expert in power system planning and development. Engineer Mehaja, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also joining us in the studio, we have Idris Mohammed, former CEO, Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company, Power Infrastructure Consultant, and lead consultant to Nigeria Embassy in Washington, D.C., that organized first U.S.-Nigeria Investment Summit in Washington. Idris Mohammed, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. We'll have a couple of guests joining us as we get on with the program. But to begin this conversation, perhaps we just start with Engineer Mehaja. Give us a sense. We're in the north, but maybe not in the north as we know it in this case. What's the situation exactly in the northern part of Nigeria regarding power supply, public power supply, that is?
Well, I thank you so much for having me this morning. We must understand the issue of power sector today is a complex one. We have this problem today because of cumulative issues before now. I could recall when I was a staff of National Electric Power Authority, we operate during the former managing director, executive engineer Hamza Ibrahim, we operated a ring system of the grid. The ring system is more flexible, provides stability, and outages are usually minimal because when a problem happened at one point, you can inject power through the other. He was forced to dismantle that because as at that time, funding in the sector was not there. Operationally, he could not continue with the ring system. It's a little costlier, but when you are talking of power stability, you need a ring system in the grid. So it was now stepped down to what we call radial system. Believe me, I was very closely working with the system planning when I was working with the national rural education programs. I was scared. I said, should there be a problem today? Managing it could be a very difficult task. What happened now that the north is out of supply can happen to any part of the country. Once you have this kind of problem, believe me, it can affect the west, it can affect the east, it can affect the south, everywhere, because we are operating a radial system. An effort was made quite all right to ring it, but operationally, the ring system is not yet in place. That is one. Secondly, there is social and political influences. Political exigencies today is giving much more consideration to the siting of projects. If you don't do it, you face the wrath of the politicians, if you are a technical people. I knew previous chief executive of TCN last 2 years, 3 years, simply because I know the TCN engineers were very stubborn then to the muzzling of the politicians. Most of them were kicked out before their time because they refused to be muzzled in that regard. This is a fact. I can tell you this. Let me maybe declassify the information. The TCN engineers since then, since the time of Hamza Ibrahim, they were so stubborn. I recall one of the chief executive in one of the sectors Hamza Ibrahim complained to him that, why are you getting money to fund your project? He said, don't ask me that. What it means, Hamza Ibrahim couldn't understand what to do to supply the needs of the politicians or the top cadre, and there was no funding. For example, I can recall I worked closely with, as not informally, was like Liel Imoke when he was the chairman of the power holders. The problem actually was 37, as at that time, 37 years, there was only 1132 kV added into the system. So power expansion was infrastructural deficit was a key problem. And I was asked during his time, he asked me personally, in fact, the government was involved. When do you think we can solve this problem? I told him that you need nothing less than 25 years to fix this problem. Where you have stagnation in the expansion of the infrastructure for 37 years. At 150 MVA, 330, 132 kV transformer takes minimum of 7 months to be manufactured in China. But when you go to Europe, they will give you 18 months. And there are few industries, even not as at that time, who can manufacture a good 150, because it's a very complex engineering to manufacture 150 MVA 330 stroke 132 kV transformer. We call it auto transformers. So that is one. Secondly, there is issue of constraints of the law. In the Procurement Act, you must give to the lowest bidder, for example. And then, like the transformer I was talking about, 150 MVA, the best tap, one of the major equipment that comes with it, tap changer. The best tap changer in the world today is MR. MR tap changer is a German made. If TCN should say, go for MR tap changer, they are violating the law. And I assure you, any tap changer you use, you run into problem. I could recall also when, what do you call it, the Katampe substation, I was fully involved in redesigning it, the Katampe substation, as a consultant, where TransEnergy struck Kolenko. Kolenko is a Swiss company. I was fully involved. That compromise came into play, whereby the isolators, we call it disconnector switch, we bought all of them from China. They didn't last 1 year, 6 months. 6 months. So you have to improvise to do this. That compromised the stability of the power.
So apart from infrastructure deficit, what else? What of maintenance of existing infrastructure?
The DEN, NEPA training in the DEN power houses was something that is very, very powerful. But now, training in all the government companies is a problem. It's seen as, what do you call it, when you want to, welfare. So I was involved. When training program is put in the budget, you only give the staff, they go and they spend it, they don't even go for the training. Believe me, this is rampant in the government system. So the staffs, they are not properly trained. Okay. Yes, the staffs are not properly trained. Secondly, social issue. They need, or economic issue, they need more money. The salary is too meager, and they have to find a way to support themselves.
Makes them vulnerable.
Precisely. So it's a complex issue. So the staffs are not properly trained. Not because we don't see the importance of training, but for the reasons I've just mentioned, they are not properly trained. Handling of this thing. I could recall in 1994, the first installation of 30/40 MVA transformer was done by us under supervision of engineer Ua, who was a very good, we call it PCNM engineer. He retired as an ED in the PCNM. So we nearly fought with the management then, because usually they invite Siemens, this to do it. We were fully trained. We had very strong training structure within the system. You first do it in Ajura, you go to Kainji, you go to, so training, 2 years, full-fledged training. You have to undergo through that, but it's not there. Everything has been changed, and not to good, but to worse. Okay. So that is one of the
Inadequate
actually
training.
problem. Inadequate training is an issue.
Thank-
Lastly,
Okay.
the demons.
The
The demon, corruption.
okay.
Corruption is, in fact, superb all these issues I have just mentioned. It's terrible issue today. Whether we like it or each and every Nigerian, with the exception of few, everybody is involved in it. I pity the young ones. I don't know what this country will turn out to be in the few years to come. I saw that during this strike. It was politically motivated, but what I saw in my village, Unguru, I'm from Yobe State, Unguru, 10,000 small children, 10, 11, 12, 14, coming out, wanted to loot the police. I said no. In fact, not only the police, the military were there, the police were there, road safety were involved, NDLA was to barricade the market. What we call, like one play in Hausa land, they want to grab what they can. The police say no, and they cannot shoot.
Yeah.
They are small children. So I became scared. I said, is it what is happening in this town? It has never been like this. I don't know. So I'm in a state of fear as I'm talking to you now. I don't know what will happen.
What of maintenance
All right,
of existing?
Thank you so much for your opening thoughts there. You have spoken so much about corruption. You talked about corruption, ring systems, social and political exigencies that has affected then the stagnation for over 30 years and the issue of training and social economic challenges. Let's bring in Mr. Idris Mohammed, who also, you're the former CEO of Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company and Power Infrastructure. Let's have your experience. Tell us about your experience being the CEO of Kaduna Electricity Distribution. What do you think, are the challenges that we are facing in the North in particular?
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria. My contribution would be a continuation of the last discussion we had here in Good Morning, Nigeria with the TCN team discussing the issue of system collapse. And what my Haja said is actually true. It is true in the sense that a lot has happened that deroded the efficiency of NEPA, as we would say. Traditionally, when NEPA was in existence, when you are employed, you are given a rigorous training, like he said, and that lasts for like about a year and a half or 2 years. And then that intensive training, whoever you are, you must undergo that training. On the depth of your performance, your appointment is confirmed, and you are also given the final responsibility and posting as a staff of NEPA. So that inability to continue that legacy really is a major negative consequence of inefficiency in the system. And to continue from where he said, the demon. The demon is actually a major factor. And then you would actually know that in the old dispensation, that is NEPA stroke PHC and days, everything regarding the operations of the company in order to achieve efficiency is there. For instance, in the transmission company. In the transmission company, you are expected to embark on annual vegetation control. That annual vegetation control means that all vegetations under the 330 kV lines, 132 kV lines are removed completely And then it is a very, very important aspect of maintaining or reducing the effect of system collapse. I begin to wonder if we have a provision for clearing the vegetation under the high tension line, clearing all structures that fall under the high tension line. Why is it that from the pictures of what we are having that happened in Shiroro, that is happening in the coastal areas where the vegetation has been allowed to overgrow, and therefore movement within those areas is becoming impossible and difficult to attain, I begin to wonder, is there no budgetary provision? Are there no funding that is provided for carrying out that essential duty? If it is provided, then what is happening? From the aerial pictures that we have seen, it is so disturbing, it is so disheartening that in order to effectively carry out routine services, transmission services, online patrol, you are not able to do it. I think that has to be checked. And if that is not checked, system collapse will continue. Let me also add that before we have, in transmission, we have an aviation department. That aviation department has helicopters.
Okay.
Those helicopters are traditionally used for routine line patrol. Every day it is their responsibility to make sure that they go on aerial patrol of those lines, and then once there is anything alarming, as a result of those aerial patrols, they will detect. What is happening to that aviation department? I am sure that aviation department is now history. Now, how can you now check from transmission? If you are not embarking on aerial patrol, how would a normal linesman patrol a vegetation that is thick, that is impossible to walk through? And it's a major issue. That transmission area, that vegetation area is the hideout for bandits. So if the government is really serious, the first thing is to embark on, vegetation control, which has been provided for. And if that vegetation control is not being implemented or is being diverted for some other reasons, I think it needs to be checked. A lot of reasons that we find ourselves in today is as a result of incompetence, management lackadaisical attitude to carrying out their daily responsibilities because nobody cares. I expect that if you are appointing a managing director of a company such as transmission company, you should give him that you will be appointed managing director of Transmission Company of Nigeria with a provision, with a condition that you will minimize system collapse. You can categorically say that if you allow system collapse to happen 3 times in your tenure, you're going. There's no two way about it. Therefore, and before, the reason why I'm saying so, before, whenever we have serious issues of system collapse, managements are completely changed. It doesn't matter who you are. The fact is that system collapse is a serious disaster for the economy of the country. It has social implication, it has political implication, it has financial implication, it has economic implication. The effect, the negative effect is phenomenal. And unless the government is willing to stand firm and then eliminate completely this issue of system collapse, that is creating a serious disaster for the economy, a serious crime for the, for the country, this trend will continue. And I think I advise that the government should be firm. It doesn't matter who you are. If you allow system collapse to happen during your time because of inefficiency, because system collapse is avoidable.
But what's the
avoidable.
What's the difference when you say system collapse due to inefficiency? How much of a challenge is vandalism in all of this?
The challenge that you have in vandalism is because, number one, like I said earlier, that you are supposed to embark on vegetation control. Vegetation control is critical because it makes the area accessible. If that area is not accessible, it becomes a criminal area. And then I want you to understand that whenever system collapse takes place, it means the towers are available. And the criminals, the vendors, they know that whenever there is no supply, they can do whatever they want to do under the tower. They know that if there is supply, they dare not do it. And each time, if you notice, each time there is system collapse, vandalism of the tower becomes the order of the day. Difficulty in accessing those areas becomes the order of the day. And at this particular time, I weep for Nigeria. I weep for Nigeria because something that needs to be done is not being done. And it is costing this country, huge negative consequences.
What is the thing that needs to be done?
What needs to be done is that completely the management of the company, all right, needs to be reviewed. If appointment is on the basis of performance, appointment should be on the basis of performance. If you are asked and given responsibility to perform, you will perform. I was having a discussion with my Haja before he came in. I said, we have not met. I've only been seeing you in NTA and the electronic media, but you did so well when you were in power. He has a better reason to give regarding that. There is no, if you want to achieve results, you must lay out the template for whoever is being a management staff. Like I said before, if system collapse persists, management is changed. Why can't it happen? Why can't that happen now? Politics, like he said, is a major issue. Politics, the choice is yours. If you are a managing director and politician comes to say, please, I need a contract for vegetation control, and then you give him contract for vegetation control and he doesn't do it. I'm not saying that that is what is happening. If he doesn't carry out vegetation control and then you go and pay him, for goodness sake, is that not a disservice to Nigeria? Is that not economic sabotage? I think what needs to be done is clear. People that need to be appointed should be given the responsibility, should be given a timeline. Just the way ministers are appointed, you sign, from the time you are appointed as a minister, you sign your exit. So that it's at the discretion of the president to say, okay, you are fired. The same thing should apply to sensitive places like transmission company. Transmission company is the backbone of the economy.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the backbone of the economy.
Thank you. Okay, Victor, you have the guest on Zoom.
Okay,
So you
ready?
can just introduce the
Yeah,
guest.
we did say that we'll be joined by perhaps a couple more guests. Now we have joining us via Zoom, of course, from Kuru, Jos in Plateau State, Engineer Tasiu Saad Gidari Udil, who is the immediate past president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSC. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Now that we can hear you clearly, perhaps you just have your say, give us your take on the power crisis, particularly in the north, what you can attribute it to. And how do we proceed from here?
Well, I'm happy you have Engineer Mehaja and Alhaji Idris there with you. As they have discussed extensively of the causes and the old good days of NEPA. I'm happy to say that I was together with them in NEPA. Fortunately for me, I served with the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. And for 13 years, I've been in charge of transmission and distribution standards and monitoring. And the issue of system collapse is never taken serious in Nigeria. I could remember most of the system collapses. I keep advising my employers to do thorough investigation. The reason is that you cannot pinpoint the cause of a system collapse without proper technical investigation. And you'll be able to pinpoint the root cause and find solution to it. When we had NEPA, it was self-regulating. But after the reform and the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act was signed into law, the establishment of the regulator and the creation of different companies, transmission companies, generation companies, and distribution companies, made it like a loose system where if the regulator is sleeping, then everybody goes to sleep. If the regulator is leading, then people follow. But it is not the same case with us. We tried to look at things the Nigerian way. So what happened this time was a genuine accident on Igwaji 230 transmission line. That line links the north through Makodi to Jos, making the power supply to the north a ring, because Jos is linked to Kaduna, Kaduna is linked to Shiroro, Shiroro is linked to the rest of the grid. So you can see if you lose one line, the other line gives you supply. So that failure made the supply little bit important. And of course, when the whole system collapses, you have to restore. Before restoration, the vandals attacked Shiroro Kaduna Line 1. And while the TCN engineers were trying to gain access to those places, mind you, that is a den of bandits. So nobody dares to go there without security cover. So while they were trying to get security cover, the second line was attacked. Meanwhile, the Ogwaji line is being patrolled. Then they discovered a failed line, and to get to that place was not easy. Now, the issue here is, as Malam Idris said, there should be an access road throughout the transmission line for maintenance. But is it there? If TCN is not able to do that, is the regulator looking at it? The regulator, is he sleeping? Has he looked at it that, okay, you are supposed to have this, and you put it in their revenue requirements? It's an economic thing. You put it in their revenue requirement, they are going to do line tracing, they are going to do vegetation control. Are they doing it? Is the customer getting value? Then if they are not doing it, who is sanctioning who? So it's the whole system that we're in trouble. Then at the same time, on security, we feel that nobody doesn't like us. Everybody likes us. But in a well-developed clime, everybody is a suspect. So your infrastructure must be protected. The National Security Advisor's Office, the armed forces, what are they doing? The Transmission Company of Nigeria, are they employing technology to monitor their line? Yes, we used to have helicopters to go on patrol. Now you don't need a helicopter. You need drones. You need aerial surveillance to be able to do that. So that immediately you have a fault, you can easily locate. Our fault locators, are they working? For you to once that's a tripping, you'll be able to say, oh, it is in so zone. So zone is between this tower and this tower. You go straight to that place. Are they working? So as my colleagues have mentioned, there is a failure in training and retraining staff, both in transmission, distribution, and even generation. So we need to wake up, and I hope very soon they will repair the Ugaji line and supply will be coming through Makodi back to this country, to northern Nigeria. But security is needed to secure those lines, especially Kaduna Shiroro line. There is so much vegetation, there is so much insecurity on that line. No engineer will risk his life to go to that place without security cover. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Tasiu, there for your opening remarks. You have said a lot, and you even mentioned that the days of the old NEPA is better than what we have right now. I remember in those days, NEPA, we used to tag them as never expect power all the time. I don't know why. Anyway, it's debatable. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we don't have the TCN officials here to defend some of these issues that you have raised today. Although we made efforts to get them to come for this discussion, but they couldn't make it. So, but let's keep on with our discussion. Maybe they will come.
Adebola, I was going to say that if the two engineers are missing, in fact, all of them are missing the good old days, they put it, of NEPA,
Yes.
then it tells the story of where we are, because it means that, it hasn't been better since NEPA. But NEPA was discarded because it wasn't efficient. And then we moved to power holding. They said, oh, they were holding the power and not giving to Nigerians. And then we found ourselves in this unbundling. So,
Well, unfortunately, but let's move on. We're trying to find solution to the challenges that we have. Engineer Mehaja, I know you want to add to it, but then let me just ask, besides what the issues that you want to add to, how much of the current generation capacity is lost? Do you think is lost due to inefficiency in the system? We have mentioned several reasons for the inefficiencies in the system. How much do you think we are losing?
We could not get how to improve or address excuse me, the infrastructure deficit. We failed to do it for so many reasons. One of the major one was the corruption. But I want to first address the issue of change of management. Believe me, it's not only TCN. Any major class, special class parastatal in Nigeria, anybody you put, so long as this issue of corruption, this issue of staff training, this issue of managerial are not addressed, he cannot do anything. So I don't support the idea is the issue of management. Like I said, he inherited a liability. He cannot perform magic. Number two, the problem I faced in NEMA, particularly when it's as regard to the issue of welfare. I told you that training is seen today across public service.
As a gift.
Is a welfare. And when I said, I now made it that we pay the training fees to the institute, and I choose only the government institutions, CMD, Badagry, ASCON in Badagry. I said, no any consultant. That is where the fight began with the union. I pay directly to those institutions. And if you don't go, they will not sign up and you cannot get. That is the beginning of the fight with the union. So if, for example, the current MD, Abdulaziz, said he would implement such kind of thing, he will have serious trouble, number one. Number two, on the issue of vegetation, I don't even sure, but one thing I can vouch is provided in the budget, the issue of vegetation. But you discover that political exercises are given consideration on doing this job, and it may not be done. And there is nothing, if you don't fight the politician. I am a politician, but a professional. I give more preference to my professional inclination than any political issue. When I was the administrator, I refused, and everybody could testify to the problem I had. Because when you are talking of emergencies, for example, as important as issue of electricity is, I said, I don't care where you are, I don't care whether it's north, I don't care whether it's this or it's south. I give preference to who needs emergency support. We had helicopters in Nema. I said, look, this politician used it. I said no to it. I first met the president. I said, sir, this is what he said. This helicopter is for medical response, and I will stop this and that. He said, go ahead. So you need that political cover to fight the system. So in fact, it's only the president that can give you that. Nobody else. All the very serious minister, or you lose the job. So the issue of saying the management, any manager you make today, believe me, once he's not given the support and cover from all angles, security, administrative, managerial, governmental, from the highest level, he cannot perform. If he said he wants to fail. And the situation in electricity today requires that clause, emergency, declaration of emergency, because it's so serious, it's so terrible that normal process will not get electricity today. I was privileged to see a clip, a publication of 1963 that electricity must be provided before the end of the year. We are still in it. From 63 to date, we are still in it. We could not get it. Don't tell me all this we are talking about. We must a serious approach to it, truthful approach, sincerity of purpose. All these gimmicks, go to TV, you call pressmen, you tell them what they want to hear, you tell Nigerians, we must face the reality and face this. So lastly, bureaucracy is a major issue when you want to declare emergency. That's the need. That's why we need to declare emergency. Regulators, now, TCN, regulator decide what TCN gets in terms of share. And then what TCN needs maybe is 100 billion. The regulator will say, no, I will give you 50. He doesn't mind. You understand, this issue of regulation, as good as it is being misused. And then nobody recognizes what TCN needs because of what the company really needs. Because if you don't, I cannot say much about it. If you don't move, you don't get. That is the concept of corruption that affects. So it's a complex issue. Then we have what we call linesmen, because we took, that time, the company took outage as very, very serious offense. So you then talk of 330 kV line at all. So if people are trained, they call it live, they climb the live wire with all the necessary equipment to do the necessary maintenance without cutting off the supply. That is to tell you the importance we attribute to maintaining the supply. I could recall one of the ED, I may not have to mention it, was fired because there was fire outbreak at Abuja then in the 90s, late 90s. He was fired. 3 days into interrogation, he couldn't defend it. He was fired because there was, we call the whole system that protection aspect, we call it PCNM, protection, control, and metering. It's a full-fledged department, very powerful, who ensure that the system efficiency is optimum. So when it happened, Abuja lost transformers over 400 million that time. He was fired.
That's exactly what Mr. Idris said.
But what I am saying, but the present,
the people are not being held to account.
Responsible for all these collapses. When you have a grid collapse like 3 times in a month, I mean,
you work harder. Let's ensure it doesn't happen.
Let's assume you make him the MD.
Yeah.
Just hypothetically, you make him an MD. You cannot stop that in the next 6 months or 1 year. You can't stop it. Because things need to be done will take a longer time to stop it. Do you understand what I mean? You see, the case of, for example...
It means that a time frame must be given.
A time frame must be given.
And then, if the time frame is given, and after the time frame we still have the repetition of what is happening, what happens? What should be done? That's exactly what he said.
He didn't put a time frame. This idea I brought, why we need a time frame. You see, we should first look at how the deterioration level of the system. How can you achieve that within that time? A round table of experts within the system and outside the system must be put in place. See Siemens with their concept of the former government brought Siemens. Siemens could not start after now because of bottlenecks, political, administrative. Siemens, as serious as they will not agree to walk into where they know they will fail. And then there is always struggle. After now, Siemens have not started. How many years now?
That's true.
So if with Siemens, these things, so if you, it's not fair to say something you know you can only correct it in 3 years. Somebody said 6 months you must do it. It's not fair, gentlemen.
All right,
So,
I get that.
So honestly,
so there are other issues needed beyond the person who is in charge.
They restored the line. It is Inugu Makodi. But immediately they made the first attempt to restore. They discovered it didn't go because that line surveillance was not. They don't have even the facility. They don't have the money to do the proper surveillance. They just decided to try, and it tripped. They have to start tracing again. I mean, like in the olden days that we don't have facility, we don't have. Today we have the facilities. The drones are there. They should be able to have the drones. They should be able to have, even if you have the drones today, believe me, to train the staff is an issue. They are not interested in training. What they are interested is their welfare. Yes, it's their welfare. So it's a very complex issue, gentlemen.
All right, Engineer Mehaja, thank you very much. We've got to introduce our last guest, who I understand has also joined us via Zoom from Kaduna. And I'm introducing Dr. Abdul Karim Lawal Maire, who is a renewable energy and power expert. He was a director at the Center for Energy and Environmental Strategic Research and an associate professor at Kaduna State University. He is also former managing director of Kaduna Power Supply Company. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Abdul Karim, to Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
Seize the moment, since your connection is, at least we could hear you. So you've had the benefit, I believe, of listening to the other guests in the studio and out of it. What's your take on the power outage in the north? With the other guests, we've established quite a number of issues infrastructure deficit to inadequacy of capacity building, poor remuneration, corruption, the politics of it. Are these all, there is to the power outage in the north? What else are the issues, and what needs to be done to get going and get it corrected henceforth?
Sure. All that have been said, that has been the challenge. It cuts across managerial issues, it cuts across capacity, and as well, perhaps, as you said, it cut across the politics of it. And I would touch a bit about the
Well, I think we have lost him. So let's come back to the studio now. Let's bring in Mr. Idris Mohammed back into the conversation. So let's try and look at the issue of power distribution and how do transmission losses due to weak lines and dilapidated networks impact power delivery to northern states?
The issue of distribution companies.
Yes.
To a large extent, distribution companies can only distribute power that is evacuated to them by transmission companies.
Okay.
When the power is generated from the generation companies, the transmission companies will evacuate the power to the distribution companies. So they are the last in the line of the value chain. And then they are performing the most critical function because they supply customers electricity. They can only distribute what was transmitted to them by a transmission company.
Okay.
So if at any point in time there is no power, the distribution companies will be incapacitated to perform their routine responsibility to the customers. So to a large extent, the evacuation of the power by transmission company is so critical to the operations of the distribution companies. And then you have talked about losses that comes as a result of evacuating the power due to
weak lines.
Weak lines. It's still the same thing. It still boils down to the same issue. Are those weaknesses identified by the distribution company or the transmission company? There is an annual budgeting process. In the annual budgeting process, each sector, if it is transmission will identify areas of weaknesses, and then they make proposals to the government for funding. Is that being done? If in the budgetary process lapses or weaknesses are not identified and presented for financial intervention, whose responsibility will that be? If financial funding is made to the distribution companies, for instance, or the transmission company by the federal government, are those weaknesses that have been identified and presented, have they been carried out? You see, I think what is really happening is unfortunate, like my Haja has said. It's now time for serious business. Business has not been taking place. It's now time for serious business, especially at this critical time.
Go ahead, please.
When we had the system collapse that is affecting the entire region, northern Nigeria. For the first 3 to 4 days, nothing, absolutely nothing to show that the issues are being addressed.
Okay.
But like Mehaja said, when the president now took control of the entire situation and summoned the Minister of Power and gave him a directive that the Honorable Minister should give him a template of when power will be restored to northern region. Has that not been done? Has the Honorable Minister of Power not provided the President a template of when power will be restored to northern part of Nigeria? So it's important that the government is fully in charge. And then for an issue that is as serious as this, the president must be in charge. And the president will call the shots from his office. Just like he is in charge right now. National Security Advisor has been advised. The armed forces, both the security agencies, they are all involved. Who will now say that patrolling the line from air to ground will not be carried out? Who said that? The Chief of Defense Staff has already also made a statement that yes, the vegetation control is a big issue because it has become a hideout for bandits. Why did whoever is responsible for vegetation control, why did you allow vegetation to overgrow? Why is it now impossible? If you create that environment, it means that criminals will take advantage of the situation, and that is exactly what the criminals have done.
All right, let's put you on hold here just so that we can take this break, and when we return, we'll have to head back to Kaduna, where I understand that Dr. Maire is ready to contribute. Please stay with us. All right, you're welcome back. This is still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, where we have been discussing power outage in the north. Now, let's get back to Kuru Jos, where we have been joined via Zoom by Engineer Tasiu Gidari Wudil. Now, I had asked Dr. Maire earlier what his take was on the issues that have been tabled so far and the way forward. But with you, I just want to find out first, which will lead to other contributions that you are going to make, why of the 13,000 megawatts being generated, only about 3,000 goes to the north, for starters?
Well, let me say this technical term. You see, electricity is not like water. It's what you draw is what you get. That's why you see when you have a generating station in your house, a generating set in your house, when you want to put too much of load on it, it tells you, I don't have that amount of energy that you are taking. I cannot. Then you try to shut down yourself. So the more you take is what you get, and you are controlled. If it is not enough, you will be told you can't take what you want to take. So if the distribution networks in the north do not have the capacity to take the more than 3,000 megawatts, definitely they will not get, nobody gets it. The design is such that the capacity or total capacity of distribution is higher than the total capacity of transmission. And the total capacity of transmission is higher than the total capacity of generation, so that there will be smooth movement of electricity to the distribution units. However, because we have been privatized, no much investment in distribution infrastructure, no much investment in transmission, it's not going with expansion. The planning that is supposed to be done, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission came up with what is called grid code. And in that grid code, there is another code called planning code. The planning code put it on the shoulder of Transmission Company of Nigeria to plan the transmission and run it over time. And it's supervised by the regulator. It comes down to the issue of governance again. Is the regulator making sure that those plans are done? Let me go back to my colleague, Engineer Mustafa. You see, what we used to run NEPA, know what is happening now. Before a budget is approved for a utility, transmission, distribution, they must account for the revenue requirement. What do they need? What are they going to do? I remember some of the distribution companies were coming to NEC to ask to purchase vehicles for the CEOs, for the chairman, and for the rate making. We ask the question, what value is it going to add to the consumer? If you buy a Jeep for the CEO of 250 million, what of the vehicle that is going to clear fault for the consumer to enjoy electricity? You find out that the request for that is just one set of tire in a year for a vehicle that is 24 hours on the road. So all those ones, when Transmission Company of Nigeria comes to NEC and ask for a revenue that, look, I need to make 500 billion. Okay, 500 billion you are going to make. How are you going to invest? And how is it going to affect the delivery of energy to consumers? You have to account for that. Otherwise, the regulator will not give you that amount, will not allow you to recover that amount in the tariff. That is the situation. So if they cannot defend their request, then definitely the regulator, if the regulator allows it, is not doing his job. On this one, I must tell you, NAC has been doing that. And one more thing is, I have noticed up to 2021 that most of the requests by TCN are approved without change. Maybe they are not even aware of what they are supposed to request from the regulator to be put in the tariff. And they need to do that. Secondly, as we said, we just have to stop lamenting. We have to provide solutions. The solution is, one, strengthen the governance in the sector. There is corporate failure involved in all the sections. Corporate failure. We have had situations whereby some discos, the distribution companies, the way they run the distribution companies, they are run like local government. We have had, Mehaja has said it, politicians interfere. It is not possible to say TCN will have to do procurement like under the public procurement. It is a company, for goodness sake. So it should be run corporately. So by the time the company comes and says, okay, I need tap changer, MR, there shouldn't be any law that will say no, you cannot say MR. Because we all know from our experience that MR has the best tap changer. So for us to get value for our customers, like Today, you can't ask any private company that they should not give out a request for RFP and indicate a particular project they want. So with this, I think we have to do look at corporate governance in the sector. We have to look at interference. We have to look at failure of investment in infrastructure. Then deployment of technology. Technology is there. You can patrol your line. You can do so many things with it. And even in pipelines, technology is being used. So, and as I'm talking to you now, the SCADA, people have been talking about SCADA. SCADA has been there since before I joined NEPA. And believe you me, Nigeria is the headquarters of system collapse. In 2010, Nigeria had about 42 system collapses in 2010. In 2014, yes, they had 13. I'm just looking at it on my computer. They had 13. In 2019, they had 10. We're even lucky to reduce it. So this year we have only 6. I have had one of the uncles in the studio saying 3 system collapse in a month. I must tell you, there was a day we had 3 system collapse in a day. But because of the severity, we are not able to notice it. But those of us who are inside, we knew it happened 3 times. So the system is fragile, and there is
Thank you so much, Engineer Kasi, for your contribution there. You have given us some solutions to, some of these challenges and tackling these challenges. The need for us to strengthen the governance system and also to, do away with the political and social interferences in the system, which is very, very, very important. Earlier, Engineer Mehaja, you talked about the need for us to modernize the power infrastructure. And you said it will take not less than 20 to 25 years.
Yes, then that was what I advised.
So what time frame would you say it's feasible now?
Now it could be lesser. You need a full 2 terms of governance to have this stopped, because you see there are 2 major issues associated with stability. This infrastructural deficit and the already bad things we've done into the system, whereby misplacement of infrastructure where they don't need it destabilize the system. So to correct that, you cannot go and remove. You only need to provide where you need it now, and absolutely there. No any political person that will come say, you must take it, I am so-so, you must take it to my village, you must take it to my state. This has to be stopped. It's only the president that can do that. And he must have someone close to him who can tell him where they hide such kind of or such kind of practice are stopped. So that is that. Number 2, with all internal purposes, Nigerians, particularly the stakeholders, must first agree that we're in trouble. Must secondly be ready to really face the trouble. And lastly, with the resolve to solve it. And all other issues that will stop us from getting to our objectives must be step down and face the reality. That is the most difficult aspect, I must be frank with you. Are Nigerians, the stakeholders, those who are the state of affairs, ready to face the reality? Which I tell you, we are not yet ready. So we will just be blaming this, blaming
Why
that.
are we not ready?
Because of our mindset is, I want to be this, I want to have this, I want to build this. Everybody is going to grab what he can grab. You see, this thing is multifaceted. It's complex. And it's not so easy. You see, we abuse, is it Golden Brown that said Nigeria are fantastically corrupt. We started shouting. But it's the truth. It's the truth. With all a sense of humility and respect to Nigerians. Because I am a Nigerian. I am also abusing myself if I should. So which I don't expect. But I have to say
accept
the
the
truth.
reality so that you can now make
correct
changes.
it.
Yes.
So this is the first step. Secondly, the government must recognize that and then take a tough decision like this issue of emergency. Maybe this issue of Procurement Act, even if you want to do it, you have run into problem. Let me give you an example. The issue of there was approval given by Mr. President to support three East African states, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and one of them I can't remember. So there was a delegation to be led by Minister of Foreign Affairs. For 3 times, 2 consecutive times, we could not secure the flight. You know, it's a presidential delegation. So I was in a fix when the third one shouldn't fail. I went to SGF office then. I was so unhappy. If the president, we stopped them this week. The president, the head of governments in that countries could not travel, waiting for us. We failed. The second time, I have to go outside with, link with the then Chief of Defense, Chief of Air Staff, to improvise so that we couldn't fail the second time. So such kind of things in governance are so much that constrain. That's why I say, if you now blame the management, believe me, if you are there, you discover that their hands were tied. Of course, there could be some other weaknesses on their own part, but majorly, this political influence is a major issue. If you don't do as they want, they will kick you out. Before you know, they don't have, the president. You don't have the ears of the president. Before you know, someone big shot, maybe a politician, he may not be even the minister. He's with the president. Right. Start black painting you, and before you know, you're a bad man.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Mehaja. It's so much about corruption and political interference in governance issues. But Engineer Mohammed, as part of solutions, is it possible for northern governors to come together, for instance, given the situation at hand, to come together, examine the Mambila project, take it over as a group, and execute for the benefit of its people?
Yes, in fact, Mambila hydropower will not only be a solution to stable power supply in northern Nigeria, the entire northern Nigeria, is actually a solution to the current power supply, inadequate power supply that we are having in the country. From history, the Mambila power project, I have been actually an advocate of that project, and I have actually worked severally on that project. I am still working on that project. There is nowhere in Nigeria that you have from one source, one single source, the capacity to generate more than 3,000 megawatts of power in Nigeria, more than Mambila. So if Mambila generates 3,000 megawatts with all the facilities, transmission, distribution, evacuation capacity, and then at a particular spot you can take full delivery of 3,000 megawatts, as against now that what we currently are distributing or evacuating is about 5,300 megawatts, according to the Minister of Power. Oh. It means the solution to stable power supply in Nigeria majorly will come from Mambila.
So why
Now,
have the state governors not considered
yes,
it an issue?
the issue is the politics of Mambila goes beyond the state. But I think at this particular time, it is so critical that the northern state, I expect, they will take advantage of the situation, that if now a whole northern area will be yanked off as a result of activities of vandals and bandits, you have to start thinking of what will happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is to take charge of Mambila hydropower and tell the government, okay, we are going to take over this as a business entity, as a business solution. If we generate this power, we're going to feed the grid. And then with the arrangements that we currently have on the ground, whatever power is fed into the grid is accounted for and paid for. Already we have Nigerian bulk electricity trader, MBET. MBET will now settle the differential power that is generated from Mambila, and then it will be paid for. So northern states can now have adequate power supply that they generated. Power supply, power generation is a business. It's a big business.
It is.
And now that the whole region is in blackout for 7 days, like I said before, it is so phenomenal that in the north now, you just are hearing it because you are here. But what is actually on the ground in the north, it is sad. Therefore, the northern government, I expect, the northern governors will take over that project and deliver the project in a record time in order to avoid future occurrence of this kind of mess that we have found ourselves.
The minister already said that within 5 days that the power will be restored. Do you think it's feasible?
Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Well, I don't have a
All
guess.
right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Engineer Mr. Idris Mohammed, former CEO, Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company, Power Infrastructure Consultant and Lead Consultant to Nigeria Embassy in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
Thank you
we
for
believe
having
that the necessary authorities are listening to us. Also, I just also want to thank Engineer Mustafa Mahaja, a former Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, an expert in power system planning and development. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Also, we want to thank Engineer Tasiu Sahad, who has labored Nigeria as the headquarters of system collapse. So thank you so much for coming and for your contribution this morning. Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you so much for staying with us. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Victor Azu. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.